Hi everyone. This PowerPoint video on Assessment 3, the Business Report, includes some important details about the requirements of the assignment. The task is to write a 2,000 word report in a formal business style that analyses the communications hierarchy and the structure of an organisation that you've had some association with. The report needs to evaluate some of the key themes that we've been reading about in the unit so far. This includes, and you can see this in the task description, leadership and management, communication styles, interpersonal skills, team and group dynamics, the emotional climate of the organisation, verbal and non-verbal cues, oral and written communication processes, work culture, and intercultural communication. And that's just to name a few. We want you to find the areas in the organisation that you think best contribute to the way communication is practiced and to evaluate how the organisational structure has been built around or fosters these elements. So we're not asking you to analyse every aspect that we've read about in the course, but please find several of them, perhaps 3, 4 or 5 at the most, that you think contribute to the communication structure in that organisation. In previous semesters, students have asked why it is that they need to produce a report rather than an essay. Essays are the primary communication mechanism within academia, and that is why your first assessment was an essay. It's very important for you to learn those essay writing skills. However, many of you are working in a business environment, and therefore you also need to understand how to create a strong business report. We want you to take away knowledge and understanding of how to prepare such a document. We've given you a range of areas you can discuss in the report, but it's really important in this assessment that you demonstrate your understanding of the theory and concepts that you've been reading about in the unit and to show how they apply to your experience with your chosen organisation. Essentially, it's about connecting the theory with the practical. While you will demonstrate knowledge of the organisation you are analysing in the report, you also need to bring in the theory as well as additional reading. We want you to show that you've done more reading than the textbook in relation to the key concepts you decide are most relevant to your particular organisation. You're going to be marked in part on your ability to do that. So another question that comes to us with this assessment is, can you analyse the same organisation that you analysed in your short essay? Yes, you can, but it needs to be an original piece of writing. It's a completely different assessment and one that requires a different writing structure. So the short essay was just that. It was 1,500 words and you were required to write in an academic essay structure. However, this is a business report with a maximum of 2,000 words, and the structure and stylistic approach is very different. So if you do use the same organisation in both assessments, in your business report, you need to completely rework the ideas using new concepts and new theories. Also, as I've already mentioned, more reading and referencing is required in the business report. It's important to note that when you submit an assessment to the university, you agree to the Academic Integrity Declaration that appears on the assignment cover sheet that we provide. This cover sheet states that you have not previously submitted this assignment for any university unit. So going back to using the same organisation for both assessments, some of the ideas, if you do that, will overlap. For example, you may have given a brief overview of the organisation in your short essay. That's fine, but please do not copy and paste large blocks of text because this will not be accepted. You need to bring new material to the report. In other words, we want to see rewritten and reworked ideas. The essay task was different because you were analysing particular situations from your own experiences. But in the report, you're focusing on examining the organisation's communication hierarchy and the organisation's communication structure, not your own specific situations and encounters. These are two different things. The report is more holistic, a wider examination of that organisation's communication strategies and practices, and an opportunity for you to further examine some of the communication models, theories, concepts, and practices that we've been reading about as a group throughout the unit. Now, in your first essay, you were asked to be a little more reflective, so a small amount of first person writing was allowed. But in the report, we advise you to avoid using first person writing. Take more of an academic approach and develop an academic voice when writing this assessment. Also, if you were writing a business report for your workplace, you probably wouldn't need to reference to the extent that we're asking you to reference in this report. Yes, this is a business report, but it's also an academic assignment, so you need to reference any ideas and concepts that you use. And even if you conduct surveys or interviews, which I will discuss further on, you still need to include references, as all information and ideas must be referenced. Now you can see on the Common 12 site under Assessment, Business Report, Guidelines and Structure for A3 Business Report, there is a list of the different information pieces that should be included in the report, such as executive summary, table of contents, and so on. Now, there are some very specific stylistic requirements in a business report, so when you're designing your report, make sure that you read this carefully as well as the textbook to ensure your report is structured in the right way. It is a requirement for this assessment to include visual design elements, and by this we mean visual material that you create yourself. Now, this might be a flow chart, a diagram, or a map. It might be a chart of the organisational structure or a diagram designed around a particular aspect of communication and how it flows or is practiced between departments. Or it may be your interpretation of one of the communication models. But the design elements you choose to include cannot be a generic copy and paste of a chart or a table from the textbook or another source. It must be designed by you and needs to be customised to suit your organisation and your report. When you include visual information, it's very important that you name it. For example, Figure 1, a map of the workplace layout. Just give it a brief, simple title in the document itself so we know what we are looking at. Your visual element also has to be logical in its placing within your report. So whether you include it directly in the body of the report or as an appendix, that is up to you. And if you're unsure, you can chat with me on the DB forums. The location of the visuals in the report needs to be relevant in terms of the text that surrounds it. You should explain what that diagram is, what it is that the diagram is doing, and how it's relevant in terms of the concepts and theories that you're outlining in that particular section. So there must be a textual connection to the visuals. Another question that's raised in relation to this assignment concerns data collection. In this course, we've read in the textbook about surveys, interviews, and techniques for finding data and information about an organisation. Now, in the real world, this of course would be a crucial aspect of your report. But because you're at a first year level, you're not expected to undertake this level of data gathering. If you do have access to existing data about your organisation that is publicly available, or if you feel comfortable to survey some colleagues briefly, then it's perfectly fine for you to incorporate that information into your report. If you were conducting a survey or interview, you would write the questions and place them in the appendix, making sure that you signal the number of the appendix throughout the report, or the number of the appendices throughout the report. In terms of publicly available information about your organisation, make sure you don't simply copy and paste that information, because that will then appear in your academic integrity report. If you're using information from the website, you need to reference that and frame it in your own words to fit in with your report. Can I stress though that the inclusion of surveys, interviews, data collection, etc. is not a requirement of this assignment. Extra marks are not assigned to those who include those elements. So only undertake that style of data collection if the situation permits, your workplace feels comfortable, and you feel comfortable with undertaking that research. So, to wrap up, we want you to take a deep approach to this report. Being able to analyse how communication works in the organisation you're involved in is a really important strategy to develop. You're welcome to ask me any questions if you need further clarification on anything I've mentioned here. And again, I encourage you to use the Business Report Forum to brainstorm and share ideas. See you all on the forums.